the greater good, and how they would feel to learn that their dentist or doctor had sort of gotten through school by purchasing papers.
Well, we'll go to Eilat Israel, and Yasha Harari is a partner in schoolsucks.com. Maybe we can get you to address that, Mr. Harari. Welcome to the program, by the way.
Hi, how you doing?
Okay.
It may sound strange to you coming from the guy from School Sucks, but basically I don't disagree entirely with what a lot of these other, of these peers are saying. We do see that basically, a lot of teachers are moonlighting, writing papers, and the system is basically still using a carrot and stick approach in terms of, the crime and punishment, so they say, of, finding the cheaters and then blaming, them for the problems that ail the system. But the bottom line is that the system itself is not perfect and has quite a bit of problems in it, endemic, to the fact that, we don't see that the solution to education will necessarily be just, blame the kids for the cheating. What we say is reach out to School Sucks, reach out to the students, let's solve education together.
So what you're saying, in effect, is because the system is bad, you'll help students do the work that they're supposed to be doing?
Well, we have an open and free library on schoolsucks.com. It's a public, it's a free and open library. You don't even have to register as a member to read any of our papers. I mean, this is 2006, and, I think we can all say by now, having the tools in the world that do exist online, isn't it better, for School Sucks to be an open and free library that doesn't charge and doesn't block anybody, including teachers, who, by the way, use our system a lot, to search the body of our papers. Isn't that better, after all, than not allowing information to be decided, and they're all, written for peer-to-peer.
I think Dean Wormuth had indicated that she had seen some of these papers, and it's your experience they were turned in kind of extant, and they weren't exactly high quality. Was that?
When School Sucks first opened, I don't know how many years ago, I was a faculty member then, and I read some of the papers and sent them an email that said basically the papers that I had read would never get more than a D in my class. So what kind of a service were they performing for students in that sense?
Well, that's a reflection of the education system, wouldn't you say? I mean, after all, these are the kids who are taught by the system to write, and these are papers that they've written and submitted to each other through our site in order to, put in their colloquialism what is exactly the topic that they're writing about. I mean, if you did take a copy, a paper out of School Sucks and copy paste it and turn it in as your own, you probably did deserve that B or whatever, because it's really not a great source to find all A papers. And if it did, then somebody might come along and say, hey, you're helping kids cheat. Well, that isn't our purpose, and I don't think that anybody's going to find that that's a way to solve education's problems.
You would dissuade those who made that conclusion? You are not helping kids cheat?
I would definitely think we're not helping kids cheat. If anything, we're helping the education system be aware of the problems that are endemic to the system, and we're eager to work with the companies that are out there and the faculty that are out there, that want to teach children better values from the start. I mean, obviously it would be great if a lot of the teachers were more qualified to teach the subject that they're actually teaching. That's all wonderful, and we can talk about standards for teachers at some other point. That's a long discussion in and of itself, but I mean, the bottom line is a service like School Sucks, which is very, very student-friendly, obviously is there not just to help kids cheat, but to remind the education system, there need to be solutions that aren't just blame and attack. There need to be systems that teach higher values. The reasons that students feel they need to cheat need to be addressed in a proper way, and not just by carrot and stick.
Again, that's Yasha Harari, who is with us from Eilat Israel, partner in schoolsucks.com. Speaking of, as Mr. Harari was, about higher values, Tim Dodd's with us. He's Executive Director of the Center for Academic Integrity. He's in Durham, North Carolina, and they promote academic honesty, particularly via codes and policies and trying to change the whole campus ethic. How do you do that, Tim?
Well, I think this discussion has been quite valuable in articulating the comprehensive approach that's required. As the fellow from Turnitin noted, honor codes in and of themselves are not necessarily a solution unless they are highly active. There's buy-in from faculty and students. A service like his, in and of itself, does not necessarily stem the tide of cheating and plagiarism. In fact, you might be interested to know that yesterday I had an interview with a reporter who was commenting on a term paper mill site that claimed that it was Turnitin.com proof. That is, they subscribe to the service, and they run all of their papers through Turnitin.com before students buy them. It's not just a faculty issue, but we are seeing a great increase in faculty responsiveness to the discussions about plagiarism and the more individualizing of work. I mean, we talk here about the cradle-to-grave approach. That is, you have to address issues of conscience, you have to address issues of practice, you have to address issues of pedagogy, you have to address issues of competent education about standards. And
how about character?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the fundamental values of academic integrity, are basically honesty and trust and respect and fairness and responsibility, and that's absolutely a character education point. But character education without an environment that induces respect for those values, or may in fact contravene or violate those values, will do character education no good.
Well, how do you engender character becomes, for me, the central question in what you, I think, and others have described as this competitive culture of expediency.
Mm-hmm. I mean, our mission here is, of course, to fashion a competing message. I've often said that if we allow the default culture to exist, which is a culture that, privileges being busy and therefore creates a kind of essence of expediency as the way to live through life, a culture which in many ways values creative shortcutting, as students often read reports about government officials and business leaders and religious leaders taking all sorts of shortcuts with truth and integrity.
And dare I say it, just dovetailing on that, a culture that perhaps is Machiavellian?
That's one way of describing it. But if we leave that message hanging there, we can't expect students in some ways to behave differently. We have to be quite overt. We have to be quite consistent and persistent in suggesting that the practice of integrity is a necessary life skill, and you get to practice that in high school and college by kind of defining your life around the values of academic integrity.
Again, we're talking to Tim Dodd, who's with us from Durham, North Carolina. He is Executive Director of the Center for Academic Integrity. As we explore this hour, ethical issues involved in academic plagiarism and what can be done about it and how serious it is, and I think it's been characterized pretty much here as being very serious indeed. I'm going to open our phone lines and invite those of you listening to join us. You are cordially invited to do that now. If you have something you'd like to say here or contribute, any questions or comments, please join us. Our toll-free number is 866-733-6786. That's toll-free from wherever you're listening to us on radio, internet, or Sirius satellite. Again, you can join us now at 866-733-6786 or send us an email, and our email address is forum@kqed.org. A couple of studies have been referenced, and again, I want to mention the Josephson Institute of Ethics is one of them. It's a national survey, said that about two-thirds of students have been given to, at least one time or another, some form of plagiarism. The CAI assessment project, pretty much the numbers are the same, actually a little bit higher. We're talking again with Tim Dodd, with Maggie Sokolek, lecturer and coordinator of the College of Engineering Technical Communication Program at UC Berkeley, with Elise Warmoth, Associate Dean of the College of Humanities at SF State, and John Berry, founder and CEO of iParadigms, as well as Yasha Harari, partner in School Sucks. Your calls and emails when we return on Forum. I'm Michael Krasny.